led her 80,000 workers to strike against her brother, my grandfather, who was the Mill Owners Association head. Now Gandhiji had just come to Ahmedabad, straight out of, this was 1914. Gandhiji had just come, and Gandhiji had come with all these ideas of peaceful arbitration. So he got involved in the labor thing, and they were striking, and there was no work happening. So Gandhiji said, listen, I'm living in this house, and I think we'd better get both of you to sit down and negotiate. And there was this 7-day negotiation with Gandhiji sitting in the middle, head of Mill Owners Association on one side, his sister, head of the labor union on the other, and she asking for a 1 paisa raise in wages. He saying he wouldn't give any raise, and Gandhiji settled for half a paisa. And the psychologist Erik Erikson, who wrote a book, an amazing book in the 60s called Gandhi's Truth, which traces the history of Gandhiji's nonviolence movement, says that for Gandhiji, this was the deciding factor that made him realize that any two opposite positions could find a middle ground. And all his strategies after this were through this. Now think of, in today's context, the integrity of these two people. Today, where you know that the minute a politician or a corporate head or somebody is bringing their son or daughter in, they can't possibly have two non-partisan positions, and you believe in them. But here was a brother and sister living in the same house, and none of the laborers or none of the other mill owners had the slightest doubt that because they were brother and sister, they would have some understanding and sell their side. Now these were the kind of stories I was brought up. Most of my aunts and uncles were born in jail on both sides of the family. So the privilege that I was talking about was this privilege. The privilege of people actually jumping into things and doing things. People actually making the change they wanted. My mother's elder sister was the head of Subhash Chandra Bose's women's wing. She was called Captain Lakshmi. Her name is Lakshmi. And she led the women's battalion from Burma and Singapore and was thrown into the Lal Killa in the famous trial of Sehgal and Shahnawaz and so on. But till today, at 95, is a staunch communist who leads morchas, and I have seen the way, wherever she goes, people say Inqilab Zindabad and fall at her feet. But did what she had to do. I went to a strange school. Somebody was telling me that they know an aunt of mine, and this was the aunt called Leena Sarabhai, who actually first invited Madame Montessori to come to India. She found that when she had a son, that there was not a single school in Ahmedabad that she really felt comfortable with. So being the kind of family it was, she said, okay, if there's no school, I have to start a school. So she did a research on what the best schooling was the world over, heard about Madame Montessori, flew in those days to Italy, and invited Madame Montessori to come to India. So, you know, today we find Montessori education the most common thing. But she actually brought Madame Montessori and started the first Montessori school in Ahmedabad. And I went to that school. It's a school called Shreyas. And it's the kind of school where, again, you have to do everything. And I remember very, very clearly that we had duties on rotation. So 1 week you'd get assigned to the kitchen, 1 week you'd get assigned to washing everybody's dishes, 1 week you'd get assigned to cleaning all the public loos. And I promise you that till today, my greatest pride is when I used to get a triple plus in keeping the public toilet clean. Because even today, you know that to keep public toilets clean in this country is a practical impossibility. And with a school of 300 kids, for me to get a triple plus saying this week the toilet has been fabulously clean was like, I mean, like the cat who ate the cream. And even today, that is an experience that says me, no amount of prizes in science or dancing or music ever made up for that pleasure. What does this do to somebody? What it does is it says, you want to get something done? Well, do it. And this is something that I have kept in me all my life. I remember conversations between my parents. Ahmedabad was an extremely conservative city when my mother must have married. She came from this high society, in some ways high society, tennis playing, going to dance balls and so on, Madras and then Bangalore. Incidentally, she was Homi Bhabha's mixed doubles tennis partner. And it was Homi Bhabha who introduced my parents, saying this might be a good idea because she's actually a dancer. But that kind of society, coming to Ahmedabad where she was offered dudhi and karela to eat, which for a good meat-eating South Indian was like committing harakiri. And she missed the cosmopolitanism of Chennai. So she said, how come there's no film society here? So Papa said, Mrinal, start one. So she started. And then she said, how come there's no dramatic society here? Again, start one. So she started. And that is how a lot of things happened in Ahmedabad. And again, today we are at a strange time in India. All of us keep talking about this shining mode. And we keep ruining the fact that there's more violence and the country's getting dirtier and there's garbage everywhere. And we don't seem to make the direct connection. Or we don't want to because it's too uncomfortable making. And the direct connection is the country's in the state it is, not because of the politicians, but because of us. It's not the politicians at all. The politicians obviously are self-serving because we have elected them and we are self-serving. And we have become a country of deaf mutes. So when somebody says to me, how is it that there are terror strikes and isn't it terrible that Naxalism is growing? Excuse us, we're the ones doing it. Because if there is no way that you want to listen to people to whom you are doling out great injustice, if you don't want to look at them, if you want to only flaunt your great wealth and your 5th car and your 75th Gucci handbag and talk about it, if we want to make heroes of people who climb to the top, it doesn't matter how, and we know that some of the corporates to whom we give Padma Bhushans and Bharat Ratnas have been total robbers from the day go. If these are our icons, then we deserve the Naxalites and we deserve the terrorists. And it's no use our saying, what can we do? I'm an ordinary businessman, I only make 75 crores a year, what can I do? Nor is it any good saying, look at this government, they don't do anything. After all, the government is never going to be able to do something. We have 1 billion people. So what is it that we can do and why should we do it? We should do it for very self-serving reasons. Forget the philanthropy. Forget the sort of charitable nature. Forget the fact that we actually might have deep down in each of us a need to actually help people. We might have a compassionate seed behind all the masks that we wear. Forget all of that. Just think purely from the I, me, myself view. Because that is what is in fashion. I have to think of myself, it doesn't matter. Famous Nero, it doesn't matter if the city burns, as long as my stuff is okay. And I faced it in Gujarat and we will talk about that as well. It's like the bird in a golden cage. The bird is convinced that it is privileged because the cage is made of gold. So the bird concentrates on the gold. As an outsider, you can see that it's a cage. The bird doesn't want to see that it's a cage. Because the bird would feel uncomfortable if it realized it was caged. It would become even more uncomfortable if it knew that the cage door was open, but it was too cowardly to fly. And that is the state we find ourselves in. We want to say that as long as my investments are okay, as long as my kids go to the best schools, as long as that riot is not going to engulf me or it's not my daughter that is getting gang raped in that college, that's fine. But when a fire spreads, it doesn't say whose house it is going to. So if we want to stop that fire spreading, we have to stop sitting on our backsides and we have to say, can I make a change in one life every day? Can I open a window in one life every day so that I know when I go to bed and when I get up the next morning that yes, I did my bit and I am doing my bit and it's making me a better person. Because believe you me, nothing, no amount of awards, no amount of accolades, no amount of money, no amount of sitting in fancy cars, no amount of photographs on page 3 give you the kind of satisfaction that you get when you know genuinely that you have done something to make a difference. So what does it take to make us do that? Why aren't we doing it? Are we really so busy? Are we really so busy that we can't stop our own house from catching fire? Because that's what's going to happen. And day after tomorrow I'm going into heart of Naxal country. I'm performing in Nizamabad. And you know the figures. 10 years ago there was 2 districts in India where there was Naxalites. Today there are 140. Why? Do you think that these people voluntarily want to take up guns? Do you think that they would not rather have happy homes and settle down and actually see their children grow up and have enough food to eat? We have forced them to, because we are turning deaf ears, and we are turning deaf ears at a greater velocity than ever before. I will give you one example. For those of you here who are over 40, you remember the films of the 60s and 70s even. There used to be characters who were poor. There used to be characters who were not sort of glamorized. Take Raj Kapoor's films, or take films like, what is this film Manthan was in, about the untouchable? Sujata. These were films with characters who actually were real people. Today, that whole thing has been airbrushed away. Today we are only talking in terms of people, of Chota Shakir. So not of the poor robber who has to rob bread. That's not where we are looking. So even in our public memory, even in our visual memory, we have completely annihilated 70% of this country. And then we ask ourselves, what is going wrong? 2 years ago, I took a decision, a career decision, a commitment decision. I have 2 children, they're now 24 and 18. But as they grew up, their friends used to come to my house all the time. And I would be talking to my children, we talk about everything that I'm concerned about, they are concerned about. So everything from politics to communal hatred to violence to all this comes up in just normal conversations. And I would see that they had no clue what I was talking about. And so slowly this conversation opened. They went to the best schools, so their parents were good professionals like you. But the only thing that was ever talked about in the house was how well they did in exams. Were they coming first in tennis, roller skating, swimming, dancing, Bollywood, blah blah blah, 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 blah. Nothing about fun, but about being the best. And about how much money you will earn when you actually finish and grow up. Complete isolation from reality. And I thought that, we keep hearing people say, the children are our future. I said, if we have a future that is so totally one-sided in what they realize is reality or what they understand as reality, then God help this country. So I decided that what I needed to do was to create a performance piece that would go to young people and first show them what 70% of India is like, and secondly, push them into taking a stand and say, I am willing to be counted and I will make a difference. Just then, a friend of mine, a colleague, many of you must have heard of him, called Harsh Mandar, the ex-IAS officer who threw in his